Good morning, everybody. So this is where we left off with lesson 6. We've completely styled it to our liking. Adding bootstrap elements. In addition to that, customizing it with our own style sheet, the greenstyles.css. So adding color to backgrounds, adding gradients, adding images, and all sorts of things. So the next thing that we want to do, and that's what we're going to do in lesson 7. So what I'm going to, and then when we're done with lesson 7, I will show you how to publish it. And then when you publish it, then you will receive a grade for lessons 1 through 7. Okay. So this is how I want to make sure that when you're working on each lesson that you switch. So I'm going to go to Site, Manage Sites. You have to do this for every lesson. So this is the site that I'm working on right now. It's Art 196 for spring 2021. That's what I named mine. I'm going to double click on it. And then for the local site folder or root folder, whatever you want to call it, I want to make sure that it is linked to lesson 7. Yours will probably be linked to lesson 6, but I just changed that this morning, okay? So once that's chosen, then I need to go into advanced settings, select local info, and then for the local image folder, I need to do the same thing. Right now, it will be pointing to an image folder, and you're going to say, well, what's the problem with that? The problem is that it was linked before to lesson 6. So I want to make sure that it's in lesson 7. Okay, the image folder inside lesson 7. Now I can click save, and I should be good to go. Okay, so everything looks pretty nice. But what we want to do now is to dress it up a bit more for media queries. And if you'll notice at the top, these little bars pertain to different media sizes. And right now I have this stretched out so that it's for a medium or large size screen, and it looks just fine. Okay, we have our nav bar at the top, we have our header, we have our left aside main content with the article, and we have our right aside. But now if I scrunch this down and I make it a little bit smaller, it just shrinks it down and that's it. You know, it makes it kind of, and that looks okay. There's nothing wrong with it. But when I go all the way down to here to a really small screen, notice what happens. What happens here is that pages load from top to bottom, left to right. So naturally, because in the top row, we only have, one column. So what we have here, it's shrunk down for the new nav with the little hamburger element. We have our header, which is, again, one column. But notice what happens with the next row, where we had 3 columns. The left aside loads first, then the main article, and then the right aside. Well, I want my article, the main heading here, to load before the aside. I want it to change the order of that. So I have to do some gymnastics here to get that done. So I'm going to pull this back out here like so, and I'm going to show you the finished version, and I'm going to be referring to that. So now when I shrink this down, watch what happens. When I go down to a smaller screen like so, this could be for, an iPad or any tablet, that when it's viewed on a small screen vertically, that you can see that the left aside is over here. And I have the main content. And then notice what happened to the right side. It dropped down and it stretched to a full 8 units. Okay, and then when I go down to a really small screen, again, notice what happens. The main content here loads first, and then the left aside, and then the right aside. So that's what we're going to change. And then in addition to that, for a teeny tiny little screen that you might see on one of the new iPhone minis or one of the early iPhones, we need to especially when you shrink it down to here, you'll notice that the paragraph tag and the header, it wraps to a second line. We're going to change that. You'll also notice that the logo, the fern, is a little bit too large. You'll also notice that in the main article, insert main heading, here that wraps the 2 lines, so maybe that can be a little bit smaller. But we're going to create a media query for that. But before we do, we're going to do the following. And I might goof up in this. It requires some gymnastics here to get things working. And it's easy to get goofed up. It really is. So you have to continuously test to make sure that everything is working properly. So the first thing that I want to do is that when I shrink this down, okay, let me make sure I have the right file selected, which is this one here. There we go. So when I shrink this down, I don't want the left aside to be first. I want it to be second. So what I need to do is I need to take the aside over in the DOM, and I need to click and I need to drag it below the main article. And now you'll notice that it shifted over, okay? So that's really, you know, I want that for a small screen, okay? This is what I want for a small screen, but now for a large screen, I don't want it to be like this. I want the left aside to be over to the left. So what I need to do is I need to use what are called these push and pull elements here. So I'm going to start with the aside. I can start with the article. It really doesn't matter, but we can do either one. I'm going to start with the aside, and you'll notice that it says, let's look at the finished one, just to show you what happens here. So if I look at the side here, we're adding more. You're going to see that it's, we need it to be, we're going to switch it to a small size to a medium, and we want it to pull 6 units. Okay, so we want it to pull over 6 units, and I always get them mixed up, pull and push. I want it to pull at 6 units because remember we have 3, 6, and 3, which adds up to 12. So I'm going to put over here, I'm going to add here, I'm going to have, I'm going to add that, I'm going to say, let's see, let me go back to make sure that I have this correct syntax. Column, medium, pull 6. So that's what I want. So I'm going to add here. So I want column, dot column, medium, six, pull. Okay. Let's say, I guess I gotta refer to it myself and make sure that I have all the right syntax. Yeah, pull -6. So that's what I want. So I'm gonna go back. did it in the wrong order. So I gotta change that. Pull -6. We got it right. So, okay, I got to keep going and making sure that I have this right. Column, medium, pull 6. So let's see what happens. Let's go back. Make sure that the entire aside is selected. Column, medium, pull 6. So I have the wrong syntax. So it's not pulling over. So there's something that I'm doing wrong. So I'm just going to delete that, and I'm going to add it again. And I'm going to go back over and I'm going to check. And it's important to check. So I want dot column hyphen medium MD. Maybe I misspelled me. It's MD hyphen pull 6. So that's what I want. Let's go back over. So we're going to have dot column, hyphen, medium, MD, hyphen, pull, PULL, hyphen 6. There we go. So I misspelled something or whatever. So now that pushes that over. But notice that it overlaps the article. So now I need to push that to the right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select the article from here, and I'm going to add that. So now I want to do something very similar. I want it to push over 3 units. So I'm going to put in here dot column. Oh, I know what I did wrong. You know what? I used small. I left it. This should still be small. You know what? I have medium here, and I'm using, I will change them all to medium, but I need to use small. So let me undo. I knew I'd goof up. Let's go. I want small. There we go. Okay. So I have to be consistent for right now, and then I will change them to medium, and then we will change another set of them for the small units. So let me make sure that I have let's go ahead and twirl that closed. I'm going to make sure that I have the article selected now, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add this. So now I want dot column, okay, hyphen small, and I want push 3. And now they're in the correct order. Okay, so it's a little bit of gymnastics that we're working with to get this thing to work. But now watch what happens. So on a medium to a large screen, it looks fine. But now when I shrink it down to a smaller one, notice that the order has changed. The default was that the left aside read first, and then the main article, and then the right aside. Okay, that's not what I wanted. Okay, I wanted to change it. So now we're going to change it we're going to change all of these from small to medium. And then we're going to go ahead and let's see. Let me go back up here for a minute, make sure that I'm doing this right. Yeah, we're going to switch from small to medium for each of these. And then we're going to add a different set of settings for small screens. Okay, so right now they're all set to small. That was the default. So I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to select, we'll start with the main article, and I'm going to switch all of these. Actually, I'm going to work with the aside first. And instead of small, I'm going to change this to medium. And then we are going to add some for the small. So I'm going to change it to medium, MD. And then I need to change in here to medium. It's kind of difficult in selecting these sometimes, MD. And then I'm going to change this. So let's make sure that I have the article selected. And instead of small, I want it to be medium, MD. I'm hitting the tab key as I do that. Finish that. And I'm going to change this one from small to MD. And then the right aside, I hadn't done anything to that before, but I'm going to select it. And again, I'm going to switch from small to medium. And it will still work. We're going to go ahead and change that from small to medium, MD. Okay, now let me go ahead and test to make sure that it's all working. And it is, it works nicely. You can see that even before I went to a small, to a medium size, it goes in the right order. And so I'm good to go. And now we're ready to set it up for a small screen, but this changes it for a medium. Now we need to do it for a small. So now watch what we're going to do. We're going to go to this one here. And let's look at see what we have. So I'm going to select the, let me see here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select the aside. Now you can see that we have it set for medium, but now what we're going to do is set it up for small. But because we're changing the right aside and we're dropping it down to a second row, or what will appear to be a second row, we need, instead of 3, 6, and 3, we need 4 and 8 units. So you can see we're switching for a small one on the aside over here. We're going to changing it from 3 to 4 units. And but then when we change it to 4, we have, this is changing from 6 to 8. We need to have it pull 8 units over. Okay, confusing? Sure, it is to me. So let's go back over here. So now we're going to make sure that I do is I select the aside. No, wrong aside. This aside. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and add. So now what I want is dot column hyphen small SM. And we want it to be 4 units now. Okay. And so that's what it's going to be for that. Now I'm going to go back over and we're going to add here. And we want dot column hyphen small pull 8 units. Okay. Now, nothing appears so far. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the article, and we're going to change that. And we need this to be, we're going to go ahead and we're going to add for this. So we're going to do the same thing. We want dot column small. We want it to be 8 units. Okay. And then we're going to add here. Come on. Whoops, I goofed. I can't type. My fingers are doing weird things. I put a J on there, and I don't know why I did that. Oh, shoot. Oh, no. There we go. So that's correct. Now let's go back again. I'm going to add another one. So, oh, I don't want to add a J. I don't know why it's doing that. There we go. Okay, now I can add it. Now I can do this. Now I can put dot column small, and I want it to push 4 units. So push over pull, P-U-S-H, 4 units. Okay. Now let's see what happens to all of this. Okay. Now you can see why it's getting goofed up in a small range, because the right aside hasn't been fixed yet. It's covering everything up. Okay, because I have 4 units. I'm sorry. So let's fix that. So now I need to pick the right aside, and I'm going to add to that. So I'm going to put in here, I'm going to go ahead and add. I want dot column small SM. And this is going to be 8 units. Okay. This is going to be 8. Okay. And let me check. You know what? And for small, I got to make sure that I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select that right aside. And I need it to push small for 4 units. Okay. So let's go ahead and do that. So I need dot column small. Push 4 units. Okay. But now notice what it does. It pushes that way over there. And it's kind of weird, huh? But when I go to a small screen, everything is reading correctly now. But for a medium screen, it goes wonky. Okay. So, I mean, this gets me goofed up too. It really does. So now we need to fix this one over to the right. Everything else is working okay, but I need to add one more. And this will be for the medium size. So I want it to push 0. So now I'm going to put dot column hyphen medium MD push 0. Okay. And I forgot to put something in here. Let me go ahead and do that. So I need to check. Let me go back and check again. Let's make sure that I do it because like I say, it's easy to get goofed up. Column medium, column medium push 0. Yeah, that's what I put. So that's what I thought I put. Column medium push 0. So let's do that. Let's make sure that I do that. So column dot column MD push 0. There we go. So I clearly typed something in wrong. Now it's all working beautifully. Now I want to make sure that I save everything. File, save all. Okey-doke. So now on a large screen or a medium screen, we're fine. Actually on a large screen. Now when I shrink it down to a medium screen, okay, notice that the left side is still reading to the left. The main content now, instead it takes up 3 units, or 6 units, takes up 8. This one takes up 4. And the right side now takes up 8 units. And then when I shrink it all the way down to a small screen, still my main article reads first and everything else is looking just fine. So this requires a bit of, tender loving care, as you put it. So the next thing that we need to do now is we're going to start styling for small screens. So we're going to add our own media query is what we're going to do. Now, as I said, media queries are listed at the top here. And if we look over here for green styles, we do not have any media queries of our own we have added. We are relying on the media queries that have been added by Bootstrap. So we're going to add one of our own, because if I go all the way down to a really small screen, again, I'm going to point out to you a few things. If we look at the header, we're going to leave the nav bar alone, that's fine. But if we look at the header, we can see that the fern is a little bit too large, that the paragraph wraps to a second line, which we don't want. So we need to change the letter spacing. And you can also see that the headline in the main article is a little bit too large, and that wraps too, and we want to change the size of that. So we can do that so that when it, by just adding a media query, so that when you open the website on a smartphone, it will recognize that it is on a small screen and it will format it accordingly. Okay, that's what these are all about. So what we want to do is I want to shrink this down until I figure out about when does this problem arise. And it's between like 425 and 435, something like that. So if I bring it up just a little bit, you can see here. I'm going to make it to use what the book recommends, and I'm going to make it 426. So when I move this back and forth, you can see that it's showing me in that little gray box the width. And I want it to be 426 pixels. That's where I'm going to make my media query. And so to do that, now I can press on this little plus sign right here where the little, the little arrow is. And I want the maximum width to be 426 for this. And I don't want to create a new CSS file. I want to add it to my green styles that I've already created. Okay, so I can click OK. And now you'll notice over here in the media queries, we've added one for 426. Okay, so we've added our own custom media query. So now what I want to do after I've added it is that we're going, let me pull this over a little bit just so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to come over here to maximum. And I need to add and create a new selector now for this, for our custom media query. So where we're going to start is going to be, actually I could shrink this down so you can see it happen on the fly here. So let's start with the paragraph tag. So I'm going to go ahead here and I'm going to add, with the paragraph selected in here, I'm going to add a new query, media query here, or a new selector. And it should be, it will apply to the entire header.row P. So header.row space P. So the paragraph tag, we already had one for the large screen. Now we're creating one for the small screen. So now with this selected, I can come back in here and I can change the, I need to change the letter spacing. So let's go into type and let's look at letter spacing, if I can find it here. It's down here, there, white space, vertical, letter spacing. There we go. So now I want this to be in M's, and I want it to be 0.1 M. So I'll put M. Okay. Notice that tightens it up. I can already see that it made a change, so I'm in good shape, but I want it to be stretched out just a little bit. So I want it to be 0.1 M. And that stretches it out just a little bit. But now instead of wrapping on 2 lines, it's 1. It's, it remains on 1. So that's kind of nice. Now when it stretches back out, you can see that it stretches. When I stretch it out larger, everything is fitting. So you're constantly, stretching back and forth to make sure that it fits accordingly and make sure that it works nicely. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to affect the background. So we're going to, this time we're going to copy, we're going to create a header.row, but we're going to go back to the one that we have up here for green styles. And we're going to go to header.row and we're going to copy those styles and then paste them into the new media query that we created down here. So I'm going to come down here. So you can copy and paste so that you don't screw things up. So I'm going to select that. And I'm going to create a new one here. And I want header.row. And that's all I want there. Okay. So now we have a couple of these guys that we can add. And I'm going to come back up here to the, not for the media query, but for the main styles. And I'm going to do the same thing. I want header.row. So let's find that one here. That's here. Because on this one, this has the background information. Okay. And part of that is changing the size of the fern. That's what we want to do. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to right click on here. And what I want to do is I want to copy styles. Okay. So I'm going to just say copy all styles. Boom, for the header.row. And now I'm going to go back to my media query and I'm going to go to header.row and I'm going to right click and I'm going to select paste styles. And notice that it pasted all of them. So I have that background color. I have the ping. So everything is there, but you'll notice that the background color itself is kind of redundant. So I can get, for the media query, I can get rid of that. I don't need that. So we need to get rid of all the others that we need, but I want to change the background size and position of the fern. So I'm going to do that from the code view. I'm going to go to Green Style CSS, and I'm going to scroll down until I find that. So I want header.row. Remember, we came down here. And for the media query, so I need to make sure that I'm affecting the correct one. I want to make sure that this one is selected. I want the media query down here. It's probably all the way down to the bottom here because I pasted it. And instead of auto 81%, I'm going to use, and I need to check for the size myself here. Okay. I want it to be 75% and then auto. So instead of 81%, I'm going to change this to 75%. So notice that it, on the fly, for that media query, it changed the fern size just a little bit, something that's a little bit more pertinent. So we've, done that. We can save the styles and we're good to go. So now what we're going to do is we're going to change a couple of other things. We're going to change the padding, and we're going to change the font size for all of this. So let's go back again. I'm going to go back to source code, but I'm going to go back to here. Instead of header.row, we're going to change the padding. And instead of 20 pixels, we want it to be 10 pixels for the padding. It doesn't have to be quite so much. So 10, and make sure again that I have the media query selected. There we go. So that tightens it up a little bit. That's for the header. And then what we want for the font size is 90%. So we're just changing these a little bit. So I'm going to go to font size, 90%. Notice that disappeared. Yep, that's a good thing. And then when I put in 90%, so that changed the font size for Green Start just a little bit. Okie doke. So we're gradually getting all of this done in kind of record time, really. So the next thing that we want to do is for the article, for our H1 tag, we're going to change its properties a little bit. And we're going to change the H2 tag and a couple of other things, and then we'll be done. We'll have it styled for media queries. Okay, so let's go back in here and let's change it. Let's create a new selector here. And I want this one to be main.row article H1. So I'll do that one. So I want this one to be main.row space article space H1. Hit the return key twice. Okay, so now we're ready to change the size and the properties and the padding for our H1 tag, which is this one right here where it says insert main heading here, because it's a little bit large for a smartphone and it wraps in 2 lines. So the padding size we're going to do for the top. So let's switch to padding. And padding just on the top, we're going to change that to 15 pixels. 15. Okay. And that dropped it down a little bit. For the font size, so let's switch to font. So we want font size. We're going to go, we need a little bit smaller. So we're going to make it 185%. So I'm going to come back in here. I want 185%. So that's a better size, for a smartphone. It's not too bad. And then with line height, we want 1.1 ems. So I'm going to scroll down for line height right here. We'll use ems. 1.1 M's. Oh, make sure it's in M's. So I want 1.1 EM. There we go. Okay. No, it's not changing it. Why not? Come on. Go to M's. 1.1 M. There we go. Okay. So that finally worked. And then the last thing that we're going to do, instead of flush left, we're going to center the type. So I'll switch to the center, and that should align it centered. There we go. So now we're going to change the H2 tag, which is this one down here for the subheading. And then we should just about wrap it up. And we should just be just about done. So I'm going to go ahead and add another selector for this. So I want this to be main.row H2, main.row. Let's see. Article, just like before. Space H2. Hit the return key twice. There we go. So now we're going to affect the subhead here. And again, we want just to change a couple of things. We're going to change the font size to 150%. There we go in there. Notice how that went away to nothing, and that's okay. 150. Okay, so we got that. We want the line height to be 1.1 M's. So we want the line height to be 1.1 M's. So I'm going to change that to M's. Okay, there we go. And we want the font size to be 150%. Already did that. Okay. And it needs to be centered, obviously, probably, or it wouldn't hurt. No, they leave it to the left here, I believe. So let's see. Well, you know, if you wanted to, you could also center that. If you wanted it centered. There's something wrong with the spacing here. So I need to go back and I'm going to double check some of my properties here. Oh, I know what happened. Let's see. I'm skipping some steps here. So under header.row, let's check. No, I did that right. And padding, let's look at the padding here. 90%. Yeah, okay. I know I'm forgetting something because there's too much space between the subheading and the H1 tag. So if I select the H1, I'm just double checking what I have here. So padding top for H1 is 15 pixels. Font size should be 185%. That's right. 1.M centered. We're good there. Now let's look at the article, H2. And again, font size should be 150%. Line height, 1.1 M's. Now they chose to leave this flush left, so I guess I'll do that. Well, let me look at my finished one over here, and I don't think I made any revisions there yet for any of that. Yeah. Well, they're adopting the same one. Yeah, it looks okay when you shrink it down. So let me go back to mine. And, you know, part of it is, you know, is constantly checking and changing and checking the settings here. Now something is goofed up here. There might be an extra line height or, extra paragraph in here or something like that. Who knows what I've done here. But overall, I think, I'm going to leave it at that because we've really covered today what I wanted to cover. And I will show you on Thursday how to take what you've completed here and upload it to the provider. What you'll need to do, and I guess I can start by showing you here. So I'm going to drop this down. Let me make sure, though, if there are any questions before I continue. Any questions so far with what I've done? Okay, need some time to review and check my settings, make sure that everything is okay. Yeah, it's okay. Let me go ahead and make sure that everything is saved. File, save all. Let's double check again. So I would want to go back over. I think there's just too much space in here between the headline and the subhead. But we can change that. I could go in. That's padding top. Padding bottom is 0. Let's see what the H2 we have here. That's 0 and 0. Okay. Well, there might be something from before when I did header.row. I had padding 10. That's header. Oh, I don't want to change that. This is main.row article. Okay. Anyway, you get the idea. Okay. So what we will be doing, just to give you kind of a heads up, is that if we switch to let's go. I'm going to go to my website here. So I'm going to put in Kmart 66. And I'm going to go to Kirk's classes, and I'm going to go to, it doesn't matter whether you go to handouts or weekly syllabi. What you should probably do for Thursday under web tools is what you want to do is go to infinityfree.com. And you want to create an account with them. This will be where you can upload and publish. So a hosting service, and you can clearly, pay to have their service, but they also provide free unlimited web hosting as well. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to use their free service. So that's where I wanted to leave you today. And so if you want to set up an account with them, but I'm going to do that from scratch on Thursday and then go ahead and publish what I have. And I need to go back in there and I need to, check some settings that I have and make sure that everything is copacetic before I finish up this. And we will publish this and we'll be done with lesson 7 and we'll move on next week to lesson 8. What I would like you to do by the end of this week, though, is to make sure that you finish up your Wix website and that you email me the link to that so that I can grade your Wix website. Okay. So if there aren't any more questions, that's it for today. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pause the recording right now. Oh, there is a question here. Oh, the question is, does the Wix website need to have 3 pages? Well, it could be a single page, but you do need, a splash page or a splash section. You need to have a little bit of an about section, and you need to have a slideshow. And then also, if you could add contact to that, that could all be on one page. It doesn't have to be on separate pages, but if you've created separate pages for it, then yeah. There's, depending on the kind of template that you chose, it could be just on one page or multiple pages. Let me show you the difference. So for example, if we go to my Wix website, you'll notice that I have 3 pages. Here's my home page, and I have the slideshow on it. And then if I go to the About page, it is a completely separate page, and I have a little statement about myself and a little biography. And if I go to the 3rd page, I have my contact information. These are on separate pages. However, another way to do it would be, if I go back here, let me go to, let's see. Let me just go back and put in my Kmart. Let's go in here. If I go to this gallery that I have here, and this is done in a, we're going to work on this next when you're done with Wix. We're going to, I will be introducing next week, probably before we work on lesson 8. I'm going to introduce MobiRise so that you can get started on that. But you'll notice that I have 4 links up here. It goes to the home page, which is right here. If I go to About Us, it just slides down. It's a single page website. So for small websites or websites that have very little content, then it could be a single page. And then when I click the portfolio, it just slides down to that. And when I click the Contact Us, it just slides down to that. So it could, as long as you have the 3 to 4 sections, that would be ideal. If they're on separate pages, like I have done with Wix, then that would be great. Excuse me. If you have picked a template where it's all on one, like I have here, that's perfectly legitimate too. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question, Andy? Okie doke. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause. I'm going to actually sort of say goodbye, and I'm going to pause. And I will, so I'm going to say goodbye. You guys are free to leave, and I'm going to fix whatever issues I have here, and I'm going to, I'll post this recording in about an hour or so. Excuse me. Okay. So bye-bye.